Hello everyone, Merc Serene back again. This is episode 49 of our Enigmatica 6 expert playthrough, and I hope you had a good Christmas if you celebrate that, and geez, New Year's is probably yesterday when this video comes out. We'll see. But man, this video has been a lot of time in the making. It's had some ups and it's had some downs, and even though I was visiting family, so I was out of town away from my computer, I was working on the code for this. Let's go take a look a little bit at what we have. We'll actually look at the code here in a moment, but I do want to show back here first. We have some items clearly in here, and I have them kind of spaced around to make sure stuff was going to work. In our automation room, you know, I don't actually have the building up or anything like that at this time, but I have built additional modules on here. We have some up in the sky now. These will be all of the required craft items to make things. So, you know, we can see them all here, all there. I don't think there's anything in these chests at the moment. I did take them all out. This is the final craft right here. This right here. This is what makes your wired modem. The aluminum sheet metal from the first thing, the networking card, which is all from that top bit, and then the machine bases, which we did in the last episode right here. So that all comes here, and then we get our modems there. And you can actually see we're already using them here in the place. Okay, so let's talk about the really big, I'm going to call it a bug, because I actually think it is a bug, even though I did find on their GitHub page, they don't believe it is one. Let's go look. Okay, so here we are down in the basement. This is the computer that we had done some testing with, right? We saw that we could move items between chests and things. I have a few extra things set up here, and you're going to see why in just a moment. You can't fully see this, but I have wrapped chest to our peripheral.right, so this. I've wrapped DC, which is our drawer controller, to the top. This here, you can't see it, but it does say N chest, meaning network chest. It's wrapped to the Quark variant chest number 9, which is the name that this wired modem gets when it's connected to that chest. And we do the same thing with the drawer controller up there. So this, again, you can't see it, the thing's too long, but it's NDC, gets storage drawers, got controller at 0. So if I do just a really quick chest.list, we'll see, does it have anything in it? It does. It has 2 rotten flesh. Okay. This one over here has 2 of those persimmon blocks. We'll do an nchest.list. We see them in there. If I do a dc.list, that's going to be the persimmon travertine and the 3 rotten flesh, which we do see. And if I do an ndc.list, okay, we see the same exact thing, the 25 and the 3. So what we had done previously, and you know what? Let's just do it right now. If we do chest.pull items, right? We want to pull it out of DC. Okay, we want to take it out of slot 3. We want the rotten flesh, so we'll do slot 3. We'll say let's move 2 of them into slot 2 of the chest. So we have 2 in there now. We should see 5. Source, DC does not exist. And this is actually part of the problem, honestly, of what I had been experiencing. This was something that I'm fairly certain worked when we did this in the previous episode, but now it doesn't seem to work, and I don't fully know why. However, okay, I also can't do chest.pull items, and let's do it from nchest. Okay, so this is nchest. We have 2 persimmon travertine in slot 1. So let's take it from slot 1. We'll just take 1 and we'll put it in slot 1. Source, nchest does not exist. Now, looking on the Computer Craft, well, actually, not the Computer Craft, but the API's documentation on this pull items, it did look like they suggested doing this. Instead of putting nchest in quotes, they instead did peripheral.getName of, and then we can put in nchest here. And this would just return the name. Source, Quark variant chest underscore number 9 does not exist. So it does know what this is, it's wrapped, but it doesn't work. I think if we come back and try this again, let's do the first one on DC. We're gonna do peripheral.getName of DC. This might actually work. It did. All right, so we now have 1 rotten flesh left, and we're up to 4. because we went from slot 3, we pulled 2 items, we put it into slot 2. Okay, so that's great. We can move items between these 2 chests, but I can't touch the chest that's over here on the network. This was a really heartbreaking moment for me. Again, hold on, let's go take a look. The reason why this is so heartbreaking is we have our advanced computer here, and it's connected to our drawer controller, so we have full access to all these items here. However, everything over here in the factory is connected via a chest on a wired modem, right? That would mean we can't move items from our, controller, our drawers, into the input chest, and vice versa. We can't take stuff out of our output chest and put them in the drawer controller. But that's when it hit me, okay? So the documentation does say that it can move items on a wired network. Well, let's think about that for a moment. I mean, this should all be on the same network, right? That chest on the right is connected to the computer. The chest on the left is also connected to the computer through the modem. We can talk to it. We can get information about the items in it. We can do all that sort of stuff. You would think it's connected. However, the way that this pull items and push items works is it has to be on the same wired network, meaning it has to be all on modems. So, in fact, we can move items between things. We're going to try and move Persimmon. Okay, so let's just do this. nchest.pull items. And we want to pull it out of, again, we have to do this special thing, get name, and we're going to pull it out of NDC, right, our networked drawer controller. We want to pull it out of slot 2. Let's go ahead and pull 10 of them, and we're going to put them in slot 1. And it helps if I close my bracket correctly. Done. 10 items printed right there. We have 15. We're now up to 12. It works. It works. It works. It works. Okay, that means we can, in fact, continue. And I gotta tell you, I spent like 2 days slightly sulking, going, I set all this work up. We wanted to do this whole cool project, and it wasn't gonna work. I did find, like I was saying, on their GitHub page for Computer Craft Tweaked, there is a bug written about this, being unable to do this, and with that very specific message saying the source does not exist, even when it did. And they say the actual bug, right? The actual bug apparently is you shouldn't be able to pull an item from this chest, but we can. However, they don't want to fix that bug. They don't want to make it so you can't pull these items out of here when it's directly connected, because people may already be using it and they don't want to break functionality for people. I don't really know what their code looks like. I don't know how hard it would be to fix it. And by fix it, though, I don't mean fix it the way that they had maybe thought about. I would say fix it in the way to say this could talk to this. Either way, the project is on. Now, I'd like to show you what we have. This is not complete. It doesn't fully work. It's really close. We're like 80% of the way there to having something actually working. So, AutoCrafter is the name of our program. So when I run it, we'll get this main screen. And this main screen has nothing on it yet except for a button. I do plan, like, we're going to get some details on the top. We're going to have like a section in the middle, and this section in the middle will show current things it's crafting. Maybe we'll try to do like percentages, like, oh yeah, we've gotten 10 of the 20 items, so it's 20 or 50% done, and all that kind of stuff, and all the like subcrafts it has to do. But at the moment, we just have a button. So this was new, learning how to do buttons, and I think I'm going to show the code for this because it is a little creative, I think, but here we go. I'll click it, and this will take us to the craft setup. Da-da-da-da. Here's our craft screen. On the craft screen, you will see the available crafts. One of the things that I have going for our crafts is they're going to have like a visible tag. So these are just decoration items, just to show what it'll look like when we have more than one. The sheet metal for aluminum is in there right now, and again, if we have forgotten, that is this machine right here. Aluminum goes in here, 4 aluminum to be precise, go in, they get smashificated, then it comes over here, it gets placed into our crafter. The crafter will then drop everything, well, it'll craft them into the sheet metal, and then it'll come in here. I have a few in there right now, and this was a test to show that I could send items, which it worked. So, We'll then have to have a system that pulls items out of the chests and collects them in here, and then it'll have to like count them, right? We'll have to either keep track of how many started in the system before we did the craft to see if like, hey, we've completed or not, and all that kind of stuff. Another thing we're missing here, right, is how many items we want to craft. Well, right now, I do have buttons set up here. -64, -10. You know, 0 would really be like the lowest number, and I think we would display it like right here somewhere. Maybe it would be right above the craft button. But every time, like, so if it started at 0 and I hit 1, that would be 1, and when I click craft, it would tell our craft that we only want 1 to be made. So right now it's sort of defaulting on 1, which is fine. I'll come in here to craft. It's going to actually do some calculation. You saw it pop in. Craft details window. Aluminum ingots. It says that we need 4 in order to make 1 set of the aluminum sheet metal. It also says we have 64 in the system, which we do right here. And let's actually play with this a second. So here is our 64. I'm going to pull them all out. Click. We come back out. Oh, you probably saw it. It was pretty quick. It is now updated. It says we need 4 in order to do it. And the execute button, the final craft, is grayed out. We're not allowed to click it. If I click it, well, nothing should have happened, but I don't have that part built in the code yet. So it's probably actually broke. Execute pressed, yeah. I don't know that anything actually worked. Let's go ahead and go back in there again. I just want to show, like, if we only put 1 item in, it doesn't matter. It can go in any one of these. That is the beauty of how this setup works. But so we put it in there, and it's going to tell us we have 1 and we need 3, and then let's go ahead and put the rest in. And normally, right, when we put stuff in, we use the drawer controller itself. It'll go and fill the slot up. We're up to 64. We come back over, and it has completed. When I click this, it's absolutely going to break. It's not going to, it's actually going to look like it did nothing. Yep. However, in here, source back does not exist. Yeah, this is the connection to the drawer controller. It's just, that's what we did before, right? This, it won't let us move items because it's set up incorrectly, but we will get this set up correctly soon. Let's take a look at the code though. So if we do an LS to show everything, we have Auto Crafter, but we also have crafts. Let's go ahead and go into crafts real quick. This is like the first one that I think we should look at. This is where aluminum sheet metal is. Every new craft that we want to add to our system will just get a new code entry here, and this is called a module. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what it looks like inside. It's probably a little hard to see inside this little tiny window. I typically do all of this coding in Visual Studio Code out of Minecraft, and then I load it into the game. But if we look at it here in the game, this is a big comment. We're not going to look at that. The points that I want to make clear here is this is a module that we are exporting, and that means that our main AutoCraft code can use it. In order to do that, you have to do like local module, and this is a table, an empty table. When we create a function, this is an example function, I'm going to delete this, but when we create a function, we do module.example gets example, and this will export it, so we'll be able to call example later. In fact, these work now. Required materials, that's how it knew that it needed 4, and this is how it knew it needed 4 of the, if I come over here, the Enigmatica aluminum ingots, right? This is the name of those ingots, and it's the display name, aluminum ingots, and that's how we display it on the screen, and the quantity, whoops, 4, and that's how, you know, it just tells how many you need to do 1 craft, and so we'll be able to pass in, like, hey, we need to do 10 of these crafts, and then there'll be math happening. The math won't happen in this code, it'll happen in the AutoCrafter code, because it's going to say, how many materials do I need to do 1 craft, and then it'll do the multiplication. And then you'll see required materials down here, module.required materials. And then we come down, we have a craft function as well. And so this code, this module is going to have hard coded the input and the output chests. So it knows where they are. Those peripherals will be wrapped. It'll be able to utilize them. So down here in the craft, the main thing it has to do, right, is it has to take out the correct amount of items out of this item table that we pass in from the drawer controller and move them into the input chest. And this is right here where we need to do some work, right? Because we can no longer talk to the drawer controller as it is. It needs to be through a modem, which will happen very soon. We'll connect it through the bottom. And then down here, yeah, we need to monitor the chest for output, and then we need to get the items out and that kind of stuff. So we don't have that. The last thing you need to do in a module is you need to return module, and that's it. Exit. Okay, in the big AutoCrafter code, I don't know that we're going to go through this whole thing. It'll take a long time to do so. However, there are a few little things I think that we should talk about. The first thing is the available crafts. Every time we create a new item to craft, we're going to actually add it to an available crafts table. So it's not as simple as like I plug in a new module and it just works. We're going to need to up here load in the module, and you do this by saying require, and we're saying it's in the crafts directory called aluminum sheet metal, which is great. And then we come down here and we add the craft, and we tell it the tag name of the item that we want to make. So this is immersive engineering sheet metal aluminum. So this is what we want to make. We have a display name for it, so it's fancy, so we can easily see it. And then we want to tell it the module that it has to use, and that is the aluminum sheet metal. Okay, so that's everything. We're going to have a visible tag on here too. Maybe not in like version 1 of the working code, but it'll be visible true or false. And if it is false, it just won't display it. Well, this is the old thing. It won't display it up here as an item to craft. It'll know how to craft them, right? If it needs to be able to craft those for a subcraft for some other big craft, it will do so. It just won't give us the option to craft them. If it's something that like we just don't need to make manually or manually selecting it. Let me sleep real quick. Ah, fully rested. Okay, back to the code. So we have the available crafts. We come down, we're wrapping our peripherals. This is, of course, what's going to need to change for how we talk to the drawer controller. Interestingly enough, there is a new concept here that I had never used before on this computer craft monitor. So if we go back over here real quick to our biodiesel plant, this is a one single monitor object, one screen, if you will, and everything is on here, and we're constantly just like rewriting sections of the screen. That works and all, it's good. In fact, you know, we can see we're still working. We're up to 4.2% on our biodiesel. And there's enough vegetable oil in the tank that you can see it now. Just barely, but you can see it. Diesel is like a little thicker, but only a little. But this is one single screen object. We come back over to our factory, okay, and we have the concept now of windows. So we have our monitor, which is one sort of thing, and then we have a main screen, we have a craft screen, and we have a craft detail screen, and those are all separate windows. So the windows are an object built on top of the screen. And in fact, this one has two windows. There's another window right here inside the green box, well, the green lines, and that is like our extra details window. So when we initialize our monitor, we're setting the text scale, the background color, we're clearing it. Then we initialize our windows. And in order to do so, we have to like redirect our terminal to the monitor so it knows where the window belongs. Like, does it belong here in this little screen, or does it belong out there on the monitor? So we've got the main window, the craft window, the subcraft window, and we have the subcraft details window. One of the things you might notice is, if I scroll over, is there is a visibility tag, true and false. So this is our main window. It's going to be visible to start with. These are false. They are not visible. So we're actually able to fully write all the time. Like, we could just, the code could be looping through, always checking for values, like we saw here with the required or the have. And we could always write to the window. Even if the window's not there, it'll be updated. Then when we switch to the window, we just have to tell it to be visible, and whatever window should be behind it to now be invisible, and it'll just display it and rewrite the screen. It's amazing. We could use this for so many different things. And we built a swap current window. We pass in the desired window, and we're setting a previous window. That's what enables the back button to actually work, which is pretty neat. It goes back to the previous screen, which I did actually find a little bug in that, but we won't talk about that. For buttons, I created a draw buttons, and I have two draw buttons. I've got one that's draw buttons, and if we go down, there's draw buttons without the border. So this is a button with a border. It looks really nice. On the previous screen, which I can't go back to because this is currently not running, right, the numbers, they didn't have a border, so they were a lot smaller. When you click a button, though, okay, so this is drawing a button, but again, a button is really just color and words or text on a screen. It doesn't actually do anything. How do we detect when we've clicked a button? Well, let's come down here and find that real quick. All right, so we have a listen for touch events function. Whenever you right click on the monitor, it generates a monitor touch, which is over here, OS pull event, monitor touch, right there. We can see it. It generates that event, and we're listening for this. So we're just looping forever, listening for that event. And currently I have it printing out, like, hey, where it was printed and all that kind of stuff. And anyways, we get... we have to call then is valid click, and we pass in the button table. So we actually have a couple button tables. I separated them out based on what their function was. But if we look at button table, if I come back up here, create button table. Here's our button table. This is for crafting and our 2 back buttons. These are like generic buttons that don't really pertain to much other than the screen they are on. And they're really for directing us to different windows. So we're giving them a position, we're giving them a text color, we're giving them a background color, we're giving them the text all right there. And that's our button table. So we build the button table from there, but we also use that button table to say, is it a valid click? What we have to do is we have to pass in the values of where we clicked on the screen, the X and the Y value, and we need to know what buttons we should be looking for. And then we say, hey, if the position that we clicked is one of the positions of a button, then we need to tell it, yes, that was a valid button. But also we have to know, like, hey, I clicked in the same location of where this crafting button is, but I wasn't on the main window. Was the main window visible when I clicked there? If it wasn't, it's not a valid click. So we have to, you know, if we didn't do it that way, we could be on a different window, click in a random spot, and then accidentally do something we didn't mean to because there was no button there. But however, it knew there was, so we have to check which screen we're on when we do it. So there's actually a couple of these valid clicks for, these are craft buttons, these are execute button. You know, I set up a few different ones. I don't know that we really needed them all, but I have them all. When a button is clicked, we'll then say, okay, so if B click, this just means it was a valid click, right? Button clicked true. So if button clicked was true, then we go on to the next thing. Hey, was the option the crafting option? If it was, we'll just print to the screen, crafting press. That's like a log thing for us. It doesn't print to the monitor, just to the screen. And then we say, hey, swap our current window into the craft window. So that's how we changed over to it. We have some fancier logic down here once we're getting to do things like, hey, the current craft, and we got to pass that into our details screen so we know what to populate, and we got to change our windows, and yeah, we got to do a lot of stuff. You can see the like amounts aren't wired up just yet, but that's fine because we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Anyways, I'm not sure if there's anything else I should show. Like, we could go in depth on like all of the code here. Either way, I think the last main thing to talk about here is our main function, the one that is called initially. This is what creates all, you know, wrapping our peripherals. It creates the monitor objects, the window objects, the button table, draws the main buttons. We draw our screens. These here, we may actually have always running. I need to play around with that. And then after that, these are comments, don't look at those, but we have a parallel, right? So we want to make sure we're always listening for touch events. And this is the main touch events. So we have listen for touch events craft buttons, and we have listen for, endlessly draw the subcraft details screen. So that's currently, or always updating how many items we need and displaying that. And then we have listen for touch events on the execute button. So those are the current things that we're always running. And they're running in parallel, but the way that the game works, it is single core, like single thread. So it'll do one and then it'll do the other. It basically creates an event stack and then runs through things as it should be. Okay, it is now time for the maiden voyage of, will this work? Again, this is just going to do a single craft. We don't have the additional logic set up yet, but aluminum sheet metal. We want to make one of these. We need 4. Uh-oh. What happened? Did we get an error? We did. Attempted to index global drawer controller, a nil value. Oh boy. Okay, so if you are coding, right, how do you debug your code? Well, we're not going to actually debug it live, but the important thing to know is this is the line in the AutoCrafter code, line 62. This is where it failed at. This is where it tried to index the global drawer controller. That was a nil value. So I'm going to look at this line and try to trace back why it's a nil value and go from there. This was a really silly thing. I spelled the name incorrectly. So when we come down here, I had to put this storage drawers : controller 1 in the code, And I had accidentally picked the one from our basement when I did it. And of course, storage drawer controller number 0 isn't connected to this. So that is why it worked. Let's get that updated real quick, and it should work. Here we go. Initializing AutoCrafter again. The maiden voyage. Will it work? Craft. Our items showed up. It says we don't need any in the system. We have everything we need. Execute. Okay, it moved. We did not fail. Moving 1 items from slot 2. Uh-oh. Something's not set up right. So what should have happened? We should have moved all of the items into here. Oh, look at this. That's not supposed to be there. Is that what we moved? Uh-oh. I think we only moved a copper nugget. Really? We needed to move 4 of these aluminum ingots. Moved 1 item from slot 2. I bet you that is slot 2, and that is not. This is probably a hard code issue that I didn't fix. But, there is a silver lining here. We did just prove that we can move an item from our drawer controller to our chests. But now let's get that fixed. I did indeed have some hard-coded bits in there, so now we have the code that should work, but again, I don't know for sure. Let's see what happens. Execute. We see moved 4 items from slot 8. Okay, this is actually slot 8. Here we are. They're in there right now. It's smashificating them. And I'm sorry, that smashificate, that is totally coming from Tango. I've been watching his Create series. It's a lot of fun. We see back there, it is now putting the items in the crafter, and it's going to craft that, and we're going to see it come out on the belt, and it's going to go in here. Cool. We don't have any code to pick this up yet, but man, we have a lot more code to write in order to like fully calculate how many we've crafted, how many we need to craft low. Right now this works for 1 item, but if it needed to work for 2 items or more, none of that code's in place. And there is one additional thing. This is one of the first things that I ran into that I thought was gonna screw up our whole system, and it still might. However, let's talk about that. So we're gonna end off on a weird note. We have all these cables and we have these wired modems. This isn't something I've tested, but I did kind of wonder, is there a range to how many like networking cables you can have on a system? Is there like a distance limit? And I'm not sure about that. However, I did happen to find that you might not be able to transport items more than 256 network cable like lengths away. So if that's true, we have a pretty hard limit. This whole room here should work just fine if we get it all set up. And I think we will. But then, what happens when we build the next room? Well, it might still work too, but what happens if we get to, all right, now we're on our 20th automation, and it's like way over here. Are we 256 blocks away? Or 256 connected network cables away? Well, I bet we would be. So we have some other options, okay? In fact, I think there's about 4. Let's talk about them. Instead of having our like computer connect all the way out here on these cables, all the way up to a chest, we would still have this input chest here, right? But we could do something different. We could just have all of the input chests that the computer talks to be in a basement right below the computer. That would limit very significantly how much networking cable we need to use to connect a chest. Okay, but if we do that, how do we then move the item from that connected chest all the way out here? Well, we have some options. One option, we could use create belts to move items from that original input chest underneath the computer to the real input chest that would be over here. One option. Another option, very similar, we could use pretty pipes to move the items from here to there. But again, that could be very long, right? If we're like way in the back on that mountain or something, that could be a really long distance to move items, and it would take time and it would slow our whole system down. And what happens if we're here and over there is unloaded, or I don't know, right? Lots of problems. The unloaded thing might still be a problem. We'll probably just have to chunk load the whole area. That's fine. Another option that we've done over in our farm field, way back over there, over that hill, is we could use drones. Oh, this gets a little, like, interesting. We could have, like, little stuff flying around our whole factory. There could be, like, a chute in the floor where they go down, they talk to those input chests, they come flying up and out, and they go through, like, little holes in the buildings to get to where they need to go. They land, they drop their items off. The drones could even monitor these input chests and bring them all back, and they could just come here and drop them right in the drawer controller. If we did that, we wouldn't have to write code to watch and then like pull these chests and pull items out. That's an option. And then one additional option we could use that would have a lot less entities flying around. It might reduce lag. We don't really have much lag here, so I'm not too worried about it. And we're only a single player, not playing on a server or anything, but we could use some sort of wireless transmission, right? And this is like option number 4, and it's something that I would love to be able to do. There is the Ender chest well, so there's Ender chests, but this isn't what I'm talking about, not the vanilla. We're talking about Ender chest. Here it is, Ender chest. This has a 3-color system. If you see that little icon, it's got 3 little white blocks on top, so you can pair them up. If you have down underneath a 3 white chest, and then you have over here a 3 white chest, anything you put in one of those chests will appear in the other one, magically, wirelessly. So that would be another option, right? And then we could have our output chests kind of very similar. Maybe output chests still suck items out a different way and not using the computer. I don't know, but it's an option. If we do it that way, if there are 16 colors and there are 3 different colored options on the chest, that's 16 times 16 times 16, which is 4,096. We could have 4,096 like individually linked chests that way. So that could be doable if we could make it. If we want to make it though, we don't have the things. We need shadow casings from Create, which actually, I think we probably could get there, honestly. End fiber, this is liquid chorus. We could probably make a farm for that. Shadowberries, not sure. Blaze fiber, we could definitely start making this stuff. We also need dimensional storage crystals. This would require us to get to the dimensional crystal matrix, which we have looked at plenty of times in the past, which needs Stryger's higher binding. So we would need to progress more in the magic tiers. Starting to get dark, but you know, we have options. We have plenty of options. There's a lot more code to do, a lot more time involved to get this like factory up and running. But the hope is once we have it up and running, the next time we want to automate something, the code's already in place. We just have to write a little tiny bit to get a new module class for the new item we want to craft. We add something to our item table, and then we build the building that has the actual machinery in place. So I think we could get like to a point where we could easily knock out 1 or 2 automations in a whole episode if we really wanted to. But we do have to get the foundation set up first, and the foundation takes the longest. We're now at time for the episode. I really do hope that you enjoyed it. This episode has been very difficult to make. Like, again, I thought this whole project was going to have to be scrapped at least 3 different times over the past week and a half that I've really been working on it. But it does look like we're going to be able to do it. We walked through everything. We talked about the code. It was a little bit of a code-heavy episode. I'm not going to try and do that again. The next episode, episode 50, I think we're going to do something a little special. I think we'll do a bit of a world tour, especially for people who haven't been around all 50 episodes. We'll be able to see everything that we've done, all the different machineries and places and stuff like that. I think it'll be a good time. And then we'll get right back into, and hopefully in between episodes I'll have done a lot more of the code. We'll get right back into setting up this building. We'll actually like put a roof on it and stuff. Crazy thought, right? And we'll finish out the we gotta wire up all of those different bits back there, and then we'll be able to like make modems like no one's business. But anyways, this is Merxerain signing off.